The real reason why men do this more than women, and we're going to talk about cheating today. It's all over the news. The couple caught cheating during a Coldplay concert kiss cam. And I thought, let's break this down a little bit. Do men cheat more than women? And is the problem really cheating, or is it something else? Well, if you happen to catch what was on the news or in social media for the last week or so, it's kind of fascinating. The couple that was caught during a Coldplay concert, literally having an affair. Well, they weren't having the affair during the concert, but they were caught together. And these are two people that are married to two other people. And it got me thinking about cheating. And I thought we would kind of look at it from the vantage point. Do men cheat more than women? Why do people cheat? But more importantly, what's the spiritual significance of cheating? That's where I'm going to dive into this conversation and what the actual benefit of what might have happened to this couple and the long-term, what I believe there's a long-term benefit for them. Now, many of us will look at this from the vantage point of these are two people that were fully committed in relationship. They broke their vows with their respective partners, and the emotional harm that subsequently is going to be placed on their children, on the people in their lives, even their professional capacity, because these are two people that work together. One is a CEO, one is the head of human resources, and we can pick that apart till we're blue in our face. Now, I will say from one vantage point, I don't know the ages and the genders of the children that they have, but I believe in the case of I was about to say gentleman. In the case of the man, I'm not going to use their names in this video, but in the case of the man, I think this will have deep psychological pain, especially if he has daughters, because how can a young girl that's experiencing this, the person that they look up to, their father and whatnot, this is going to most likely create trust issues, and the ripple effects that's going to happen from this incident. I was just thinking about how cheating is going to go back to some covert action, that you'd have to be, they're going to sneak around in hotel rooms like they used to in the past versus being so public. And there's something brazen about them being so public with, and we're going to talk about how men, particularly men who are of power, of status, kind of believe that they're above it all, which is possibly playing in this. And certainly the woman that was in this experience also has a part to play. But since the title of this, the real reason why men do this more than women, statistically speaking, men do cheat more frequently than women, although I believe those numbers are relatively close right now. And certainly women have emotional cheating equal to men, if not more than men in many cases. So what does that say to the state of affairs of marriages these days? See, in my mind, you want to create a relationship that is a fair proof, that doesn't lead to this. In fact, I'm going to recommend a book. It's by Dr. Sherry Myers. The book is called Chatting or Cheating, and the subtitle, How to Detect Infidelity, Rebuild Love, and a Fair Proof Your Relationship. Dr. Sherry Myers is a dear friend of mine. Actually spent the weekend with her and her partner, David. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is like the idea. You may want to buy this book, not because of the infidelity, but she talks about how to create a relationship that is a fair proof, how to create a relationship where you're not caught on a kiss cam. You don't find your partner on a kiss cam with somebody else. And I think that's really part of the message here is how do we create a relationship that is so solid that you don't find yourself tempted by someone else? Certainly, there had to be something distressing in each one of their relationships that caused them to skip out on their marriages. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But coming back to, do men cheat more than women? Well, certainly we've talked about the evolutionary drive for variety from men. You've heard this. Men want to spread their seeds. They evolved to seeking sexual variety. And so this biological impulse fuels greater temptation. Okay. Now, and I want you to think about this for a moment. Monogamy is an intellectual construct. It's not a biological construct. And what I mean to say, and this is not that I'm giving permission for infidelity, but monogamy is a construct that's not from based on animals. Now, I know we can talk about penguins and a few other animals that mate for life, but we humans are still animals. And certainly that biological drive for some men has them looking at their values. Well, let me reframe that. They don't look at their values. They're more apt to seek that sexual pleasure and that variety than actually maintain monogamy. Now, that's a sad reality, and I don't know what percentage of men and women cheat on their marriages. I suspect that number is rather high. Hey, it says 555 on the camera. I just wanted to point that out. But certainly that variety can play a role in someone's desire to cheat. I don't think that was the case for these two people, that he was about spreading his seed, per se. But certainly there are plenty of men that have that biological evolutionary drive for variety. It doesn't make it right. It's just giving a reason why this does happen. I think for some men, there's the biological drive, the variety, but there's some men who lack impulse control and have a high sex drive. I had a friend who, I don't want to even call him a friend, a person I knew from high school that was in Sexaholics Anonymous, and he frequently cheated on his wife, and he went to Sexaholics Anonymous, and he told me some stories about the people that were in this group environment. And these were people that had a high sex drive and had impulse problems. And again, generally, this is more so men than women. They find themselves looking for a quick pursuit of opportunities, more sexual fantasies than women. So this might be a reason why some men skip out on their marriages more so than women. Again, I'm not sure. I haven't done the Pew research on this to see what the studies say, partially because I think a lot of these studies are anecdotal and we may not know the real reason behind it. But these are just some of the potential reasons why men might cheat more than women. I certainly think there's situational opportunities, sometimes because men find themselves in circumstances where they're traveling from a professional capacity. They find themselves in a certain circumstance, like in this particular case, they work together and they offer greater opportunities for intimate consequences, if you will. The classic temptation meets availability. So when you find yourself traveling out of work, at a hotel bar, or certainly in the work environment, I believe that the percentage of work affairs is a very high percentage of people that do have affairs from their work environment. And certainly that creates opportunities. Now, the traveling one is those situational types of things, those things that happen because the circumstances that led to it doesn't necessarily mean they went in with the desire to cheat, but they found themselves in a circumstance. And again, we'll talk about the reasons why in a moment. But I'm talking about these circumstances where men might have a greater opportunity more so than women. Now, certainly attachment styles plays in this. Now, many of you have heard me talk about love attachment styles. And if you're not familiar with the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, or the book Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, I highly recommend reading these books related to attachment styles, because I suspect, and I don't know this as an absolute fact, but I do believe that there's some studies on this, that men with insecure or avoidant attachment styles can drive men to seek sexual outlets instead of emotional closeness. Bump, 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 bump. So we know that men and women who are avoidant in their love attachment style oftentimes struggle getting emotionally close to a person. They struggle in this area. So in this particular case, it's quite possible that men and or women that have an avoidant, whether they have a fearful avoidant or a dismissive avoidant attachment style. And again, what the avoidant represents is a person who struggles getting emotionally close to another person. And this could give cause to seeking that physical outlet because they find that the relationship that they're in probably demands more emotional responsibility than that they're capable of giving. They're capable of giving. Is that in this case, they go and seek physical pleasure because they can't give the emotional component to their relationship, and they go seek it elsewhere. Now, last but not least, in this part of the conversation, we're going to talk about personality factors and traits that cause people to cheat. I think people with low conscientiousness, people with narcissistic behavior, or unrestricted orientation. In other words, they have low impulse control. They have low impulse control. That makes temptation far more desirable. Hey, it's 11:11 on the clock now. Again, so in the case of the Coldplay couple, we have a CEO that most likely believes that he's above the law. He's above all this. Probably high degree of narcissism. And I mean, it takes a level of self-confidence and a level of bravado to become the CEO of a company. And so it's quite possible that in this particular case, his narcissism probably got the best of him, in this particular case. Now, again, she is culpable as well. I'm not discounting her behavior. Now, someone wrote in the chat, this isn't garden variety cheating. He's a CEO of a high-tech startup. He's charismatic, self-centered, and can separate anyone from their wallet. He targeted her chief people officer. This is written in the chat box. To some degree, I don't know. Again, I do believe that there's a reason why this happened, and that's what I'm going to lean into for this second part of the conversation. And I want to lean into the possible spiritual ramifications or the overall benefit. Chances are, cheating is as a symptom. Cheating as a symptom, but not as a disease. Infidelity often points to a deeper relational or personal issues, unmet emotional needs, unresolved trauma, or boredom, not just a moral lapse. So here's the reality, and from the way I view this, is most likely both these people were in okay marriages, whatever okay means to someone. They paid their bills on time, they were involved with their children. They might actually, both be decent people. I know many of you probably think otherwise, but it's quite possible that their emotional needs weren't being met in the relationship. By the way, their partners also emotional needs weren't being met as well, most likely. They just had, and by the way, we have no idea if the other two, the spouses, had also been cheating on their, respective husbands and wives. We don't know that piece of the puzzle. For all we know, they could have been cheating, each one of them. But certainly in this particular case with the CEO and the HR person, most likely their emotional needs weren't being met. They had unresolved trauma from their childhood or their past relationships. I think the woman had been married once before, and they were just bored. So cheating as a symptom, but not the disease. The disease is that their relationship lacked the foundation. Each one of their relationships lacked a strong relational foundation. If you had the friendship piece, if you had the physical intimacy piece in each one of their marriages, they wouldn't have found themselves being attracted or tempted to something else. But from a spiritual take, let's view cheating as an alert from the soul. It calls for deeper introspection, emotional healing, and honest connection. I believe that as painful as this is going to be for both of them, and this is going to be ridiculously painful, and it has ramifications to their respective families, to their children. I mean, this has big ramifications across the board. But I believe this is a giant wake-up call for them, each one of them, to work on their shit. to work on their shit, to work on integrity, to working on being true to your word, to avoid temptation, to find a relationship where you're actually growing together as a couple and being mindful every step of the way. I think that could be the potential fallout from a beneficial standpoint. And by the way, each one of their respective spouses who who are the ones who'd been cheated upon, this gives them an opportunity to build a relationship with anyone in the future based on a solid emotional foundation. You see, sadly, most couples today, the dating marketplace is filled with people who are focused on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection without ever building the solid foundation of friendship, the solid foundation of trust with one another. Today's dating is riddled with a dysfunctional group of human beings out there bumping heads with one another who don't know how to build a solid relationship. Coming back to the book by oh, by the way, all the books I recommend are listed below under the Jonathan Recommend books. How to affair-proof your relationship. In other words, how to create a relationship that is so awesome that you don't need to cheat. See, that's what we should be focused on. We should be hyper-focused on building a relationship that is so magnificent. And ladies, I know you're told to just sit back in your feminine energy and let men lead because men are such good leaders of relationship. Where is that fantasy built on? That's a fantasy that men are good leaders of relationship. You know, they might be good at getting from point A, B, and C, and D, but not in the romantic sense. At least to get in your pants, maybe they have that capacity. But I'm here to say you have a choice. You can either co-create a relationship together, or you can live that, just hope that magic fairy dust will make everything work out. And look, folks, I'm your big brother. If I could be there for you on a first date, I'd have the shotgun pointed at the guy's head saying, what's your intentions? It is time to become way more intentional in the dating process instead of this fantasy way, all based on love just happens like a harpoon hitting us in the chest or Cupid hitting us in our chest. Truth is, love is a choice. It's something you wake up and choose every day. And most of us don't have the relational building blocks to get there. Most of us don't have the communication skills. I highly recommend reading the book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I highly recommend reading this book. All right, number 2, a lack of real love and intimacy. When relationships lack real love, authenticity, vulnerability, passion, and presence, people search outside for validation and excitement. It's highly possible that in both cases, while the couples, you know, the husband whose wife, they probably lacked real love and intimacy. It probably faded years ago. And they just swept it under the rug. They just swept it under the rug, thinking we'll just somehow magic fairy dust will solve our relationship problems. By the way, why am I yelling? I'm very passionate about this. You know, the reality is in both cases, both couples probably didn't really love their partners anymore. And maybe the other partner might have been attached to them. But real love probably went out the window, at least in the case of the man years ago. And not to suggest, again, I'm not putting any blame on the wife in this particular case, but they probably weren't working as a couple on the emotional container of their relationship. And I think the spiritual take on this is cultivate a soul-centered intimacy through the practice like shared meditation, heartfelt rituals, and transparent heart-to-heart check-ins. Couples should be checking in frequently with one another on the state of the union of their relationship. Last, cheating may be may trigger a spiritual crisis. I just spilled my drink on myself. Many who cheat later experience profound spiritual or emotional upheaval, evaluating values and life meaning. This is an opportunity for both of them to really look inward, because the spiritual take is to embrace the crisis as a divine catalyst, and guilt can be transmute into growth. Let me repeat that. The crisis as a divine catalyst. Shame and guilt can transmute into growth, reconnection, and a soulful realignment. I believe this couple has an opportunity, but the four people involved is an opportunity to actually shed the old way of doing business in relationship and actually be with create an opportunity where you have a spiritual partnership with someone. If you haven't read the book, Spiritual Partnership by Gary Zukav, A Journey to Authentic Power, I highly recommend reading this book. I highly recommend reading this book. Because you know what? I think as ugly as this is going to be for both of them, I think in 10 years, this might change their life for the better. They're going to go through a lot of pain. They're going to go through turmoil. How is a muscle built? You have to tear it down to build a muscle. How is steel built? Through the hardening of fire. These two are going to go through hell, the embarrassment, the shame. And by the way, this is a wake-up call for a lot of other people who are cheating now, who are have a bit of bravado thinking, oh, I can't be caught. Guess what? There are cameras everywhere in the world. There are cameras everywhere in the world. And this is a wake-up call for people maybe to go, you know what? Maybe I either fix my relationship that I'm in, or you amicably depart and work on yourself, because I hope this is an opportunity for each one of them, all four of them, to do personal development, self-help, spiritual work, and therapy so they can find their true sovereignty. And then they put themselves out in the marketplace to find a partner that they can co-create life with from a spiritual partnership perspective. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Hey, I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. Post a comment below. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to follow me on social media, to get my dating vows. For those of you dating, you are going to want to get my dating vows, all listed below. All right, those who know my live format, it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there with his brother, Colin. He's my son who passed away 7 years ago. And in his honor, we donate causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal tonight is $50. So I'd appreciate the love. Again, hit that little dollar sign and donate. And if 20 of you just donated $2.50, we'd get to our goal. All right, looks like we have some questions that already came in. Annika's in the house. Do reasons for cheating change in midlife? Your opinion? Do reasons change? You know, I think when a young person cheats, oftentimes, I think coming back to what I shared, it's centered around that sexual variety and that sexual drive, particularly, I think, when people in their 20s and 30s. I do believe that people that cheat in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, Annika, I believe it has more to do with emotional connection, like I shared, a lack of real intimacy, a lack of real love, a lack of real emotional connection. So I venture to say, and this is just my speculation, that cheating younger is more biologically driven by that desire for variety and maybe sexual promiscuity. And at midlife, I would say it has to do more with emotional connection. I would say that would be the way I view it. But that's a great question, Annika. Thanks so much for that one. I appreciate it. Tia says, what's done in the dark will come out in the light. Yeah. I mean, I think eventually, some people may get away with it, but emotionally speaking, it shows up in disease in lots of different ways. I was thinking of Bill Gates. From what I understand, he and his wife had agreements for him to step out. That's the way I understood it. So if you're in agreement with your partner, then everything is fair game. That's one of the reasons why ethical non-monogamy or consensual non-monogamy seems to be popular, because some people want that variety. Some people want that deeper emotional connection. That's why polyamory seems to be more popular, or at least it's in our lexicon. But certainly what's done behind the scenes will most likely come out the light. So very well said. Julie said, not always. Unfortunately, a lot of people get away with things. That said, what is done in the dark must weigh on the person's conscience, even if it never. I do believe karma is what's, I think the eventual karma comes into play, Julie, in that particular case. But I'm in agreement with that. Hey, I want to give props to Annika for the $5 super sticker. Thank you for the love. We appreciate you. Ocean Soul. What do you think the percentage of married men are on the dating apps? God, that's a good question. I would say that number keeps rising. Hey, let's ask hey Google, what percentage of married men do you think are on the dating apps? Let's see what Google says. Oops, let's do it again. Hey Google, what percentage of married men do you think are on dating apps? Just a second. About
18% of married men under 40 use dating apps or websites. Some studies suggest a higher percentage of all men on dating apps are married.
So this said 18% of married men under 40. It'd be curious to know what it'd be for over 40. I would think it might be even higher, probably even closer to 25%. And I certainly believe women are on there as well. So that's a great question, Ocean Soul. Does addictive personality, ADHD, have some part or role to why some people stray? Yeah, I talked about personality factors, and people who can't regulate their emotions does play a factor in this. I want to lean into the conversation of creating an affair-proof relationship. I think this is a great wake-up call to decide, do you want, for those of you who are single looking for love, or those in a relationship right now, I think it's a wake-up call to say, how can we create a relationship that is so amazing that we don't find ourselves cheating? I think we take relationships for granted. I think we just assume that, oh my God, Jonathan, we have so much chemistry. It's so wonderful, blah, 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 blah. It's just so amazing. A relationship is something you have to work at. And so, I highly recommend, here's a book I highly recommend, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. But more importantly, the 7 principles for making a marriage work. Take out the word marriage and replace it with relationships. We humans don't understand the mechanics of a relationship. And John Gottman, the Gottman Institute, is devoted to helping couples build an affair-proof type of relationship. And so I believe it starts from the very first date, going in with knowledge. That's why, folks, read the first chapter of the book, 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. The first chapter, let me share it with you, is called Here, let me just open it, okay? Bear with me one second. Bear with me. We're almost there. Yeah, where is chapter 1? Okay, here it is. Lean on me, trust and commitment. Every one of you should read this chapter from this book so you understand this before the penis ever goes inside the vagina. You both may want to read this to understand what trust and commitment is all about. That's if you want to have an amazing relationship. If you just want to have a good time, then just have a good time. Okay? That would be my recommendation. Annika's back in the house. How we talk about cheating, especially being cheated on in the beginning stages of dating. That has happened to me several times in a relationship, being cheated on. So I think the way to talk about this would be looking at it from the vantage point of agreements made with one another, particularly in the area of monogamy and exclusivity. Monogamy and exclusivity. And I think it's important to stress how much, when you're physically intimate with someone, how monogamy is important to you and exclusivity is important to you. I don't know if I'd flat out say I have been cheated on, but what you might want to say is I've had someone who betrayed my trust in the area of monogamy and exclusivity, and it's one of my highest values. So look, I know you could easily, it's rather easy to be unfaithful in a relationship, but this is one of my highest values. And if you genuinely care about me, then you're going to honor and respect that that's important to me. Now, does that guarantee a person's going to adhere to it? Again, I think by the way, couples who are the best of friends rarely find themselves in a circumstances of cheating. And by the way, for us midlife folks, it's a little bit hard. Again, usually the cause of cheating is based on a lack of real emotional connection in relationship. And women sometimes confuse emotional connection, but I'm talking about two people who are really good friends with one another. I think if you don't have a core of deep friendship in your relationship, then it's going to be problematic. Okay. By the way, does anyone want to join the Love Seat Live? Talk to me. I just posted a link right now. I'd love to create a conversation right now about this. So it'd be fun to talk to someone about this subject. Okay. Monica said, so this ditty happened in my home state of Massachusetts. My question is, where those co-workers that were there with them? If so, why on earth would they do that in front of them? From what I understand, in the Coldplay Kiss Cam incident, that person that was standing next to him was not a coworker. So I don't believe coworkers were there. Certainly, if the coworkers were there, that would be kind of a pretty fucked up thing in my book. So but I think they found out that the person that was there was not a coworker, Monica. But thanks for bringing that up. Julie says, some people at high levels in work accept flings amongst their peers and don't say anything, and they turn a blind eye. Yeah, I mean, if the coworkers were aware of this, they didn't want to jeopardize their professional life. It's quite possible. So that could be one reason. So yeah, that could be one reason. Okay. All right. Hey, if you have a question, write the word question, then post the question there after, or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor. So let's get some more questions in. Otherwise, we're going to have a short-lived conversation here. All right, we're going to give it I did have a question that come in. Let's change. You know what? I'm going to change the subject. So I have a personal share, okay? I'm going to share what my Facebook post was today, okay? And I want to share this with everybody, okay? This has nothing to do with cheating. This is a personal share. This is on Facebook. I wrote, I've always said you can't build trust over the telephone, but can you build connection? Absolutely, if you've met in person first. Here's the truth. Connection is sparked in presence. It lives in the body language, eye contact, and the subtle energy exchange you just can't replicate through a screen or a speaker. But once that foundation is there, the phone becomes a powerful bridge, a place where curiosity turns into emotional intimacy. Long, unfiltered conversations, the kind where someone lets their guard down, tells stories, asks real questions, that's where the connection gets oxygen. But without ever meeting in person, that's a risky game, because the phone, for all its magic, also fuels projection. You're not falling for them, you're falling for the hope of who they are. That's the danger, confusing emotional access with emotional availability. Trust is a whole different animal. It's built through patterns, not promises, through how someone shows up and not just how they sound. So yes, phone calls can deepen connection when the soil has been tilled in person, but trust, that grows in the messy, beautiful in-person rhythms of real life. Don't confuse late night words with real world proof. Connection can be kindled over the phone, but trust shows up. At your door. And I want to share the personal part with you. So, speaking, by the way, if you don't know this, I am actually been dating someone for going on 7 weeks. And I just want to share, based on this post, after one in-person meeting, there wasn't an instant spark. No fireworks, no rush of chemistry, but something felt safe and open. Then came phone calls, long, honest, late night conversations that unraveled layers neither of us expected. That's where the connection was born. The attraction didn't come from a glance across the table. It came from feeling deeply seen and heard. Sometimes chemistry isn't immediate. Sometimes it grows through presence, patience, and the courage to go deeper than the surface. So I want to share with everybody, I'm in a relationship with someone. We agreed to explore a relationship shortly after we had our second meeting. We said, let's explore a relationship together. Now, what did that mean? That meant that we wanted to devote time to each other, to get to know each other through shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, and potentially traveling together. We haven't really done that yet. But we agreed to explore a relationship. And over the weeks that we got to know each other, we both kind of grew on one another. We liked each other. We spent regular time together. And yes, we were physically intimate with one another. And we shared my dating vows to each other. And if you're not familiar with my dating vows, here it is. There's a link below in the show notes called Dating Vows. But we shared this with one another, and I'm going to share it with everybody. And the dating vows go like this. This is a commitment you make to one another when you choose to explore a relationship together. So it says, and we both agreed, I agree to explore the process of getting to know you from a truthful place with the intent to declare something serious in the next 3 to 6 months. I agree to be monogamous sexually while we're having regular sex together. I agree not to actively seek to meet and date others while we're in the dating process, including taking down my dating profile. I agree to speak up if this isn't working for me versus pulling back, ghosting, or disappearing. And I agree to invest regular time in the process of getting to know you, which looks like social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends. I'm sharing this with you because we didn't have chemistry on the first meeting. We had met at a restaurant overlooking the marina. We had breakfast and coffee. We had a 5-hour conversation. Oh my God, her and I can talk for hours and hours at a time. But for whatever reason, we didn't have that strong pull towards one another. But I now recognize why that happened, because what ended up happening is we talked on the phone after that first meeting a couple days later, and we were both confused. Why wasn't there? We both experienced no chemistry. It didn't mean that we didn't have attraction. We weren't feeling a pull towards one another. And just for the record, she's totally okay with me sharing this publicly. I've already got her permission because she understands that I'm the guy that talks about a lot of my stuff. But why I'm bringing this up is through our conversations, there was no pressure of a relationship. So we shared our inner world with one another. We got to share who we were because we didn't have the pressure of dating. We didn't have the pressure of trying to impress someone. In fact, we shared a lot of our fears, our insecurities, our doubts, our judgments. We talked about our past relationships because we were building a friendship with one another. But what was interesting is the more we talked, the more we became attracted to one another, the more we became attracted to more. And so when we agreed to meet for a drink about 10 days after that first meeting, there was like this wow that happened. It was chemistry was built through the intellectual and emotional connection. And then the physical part came because we had built a strong intellectual and emotional connection with one another. And we also, we inquired about our practical life to see if we were compatible from that standpoint. And we had already been speaking so much. We were talking regularly for hours a day just because I felt like I was making a new friend. She felt like she said, I'm making my new, she said gay best friend, and the context was because I'm an emotional communicator. And so I'm sharing this story because I think we are so, because of the dating apps, we are so expectant of instant chemistry. We are so expectant of instant chemistry when actually chemistry is something that can be built through intellectual and emotional stimulation. And by the way, I think she's beautiful. I think she's gorgeous. Not that I didn't think she was attractive when I met her, but there wasn't this strong pull. And I now recognize from a spiritual perspective that God, universe, spirit was keeping us at arm's length. It was keeping us arm's length so we could build that connection without the pressure. I think dating now has so much pressure on it that it's no wonder it's so dysfunctional. And God forbid, we're swimming in a sea of emotional dysfunctionality. No wonder it's a mess out there. So I'm sharing this story to give you all hope, just because you didn't. Debbie says, it sounds like you are both at a place in your lives. It's nice to have a partner, but you don't need a partner. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. You know what I realized? I don't need someone for my happiness. I think I've constantly chased love from a place of, I need you to love me so I can feel good about myself. I've chased love. And actually, after my significant relationship ended about 2 years ago, I really did a deep dive on self-love. By the way, this is my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. But as I began to love myself and be happy, this person brings me joy. Look, I'd be sad if this doesn't work out, if she leaves me or ends it. But you know what? I've come to the conclusion that I'm actually okay. I'm happy with or without a relationship. And the thing is, she just enhances my life. She doesn't bring the joy to my life. And I believe if she was sitting right next to me, she'd be saying the exact same thing. Annika says, that sounds wonderful, Jonathan. I'm so happy. And I love that you that approach, starting with friendship. I'm a big believer now that I've experienced. I believe we should put everybody in the friend zone first. And even Lewis Howes, who is a famous podcaster with the School of Greatness, they spent the first few months building the friendship before they were physical with one another. That's what we should be doing. It's not about holding out for sex. It's about building the friendship. Now, mind you, I'm about 20 years older than Lewis Howes, so it's a little bit different for those of us in midlife. But I think we should be operating from the place of starting in the friend zone, and then the chemistry or the physical part gets activated from that vantage point. Just like Monica and Chandler from Friends. They were such good friends that the sex catapulted their relationship to something deeper. Okay? TS says, I need to get to the point where knowing I don't need anyone just to be happy. Yeah, this takes work. This takes inner work to get to a place so solid in your sovereignty that you don't need someone in your life to be happy, that someone entering your life just adds to your joy. And she has a saying. She says, the sweetness of the person exceeds the sweetness of my solitude. I might be butchering that a little bit, but it's something along that lines. Debbie also points out, I agree, friendship first. You know what's interesting? When I think back, most of you know my last significant relationship, and she is a beautiful, sweet, wonderful person. And when I said beautiful on the inside, along to go with the outside. And, you know, we had a friendship, but we weren't really playmate friendships. We were kind of two quite a bit different people. And what I like about this new person Her personality is just like me. We fucking remember what my ex-girlfriend said. I was exhausting. Okay, and I'm going to call her my girlfriend for this conversation, but my girlfriend now, she calls me extra, meaning we, by the way, we process everything. And what we do, and I think this is really important. By the way, Monica points out that Lewis Howes also made the girls he dated immediately go to therapy with him. I don't believe it's exactly like that. I think he did that with Martha, his now wife, and they're expecting a child. I think it was that relationship he began, but he might have done that before. But I think it's a great idea to bring a counselor. In fact, I had my now girlfriend have a session with, everybody knows Sabrina. I bring her on the channel frequently. I had my girlfriend have a session with Sabrina. But what's interesting, oh God, I lost my train of thought about friendship. We like to unpack things. She loves to unpack things as much as I do. And here's the thing. I want someone to write this in the chat box. This is something we do frequently. We talk about, it's called, how did we get here? Where are we? And where are we going? Someone write that in the chat box. How did we get here? Where are we? And where are we going? How did we get here? Where are we? Where are we going? I'll repeat that, okay? We constantly talk about the relationship from that vantage point because we realize that a relationship is like, it's like a sailboat in the ocean. The minute if you have the rudder or the steering column, if you turn it 1 degree, do you know if you were traveling to Hawaii, 1 degree will take you to New Zealand or take you to Australia, just 1 degree off, okay? So a relationship is like steering a boat. You're constantly doing this to keep it on path. So what we decided is we're going to do, how did we get here? Where are we? Where are we going? Is to revisit the relationship on a regular basis to keep in touch from, like, we kind of laugh. How did we get here? You know, like, how did we get here? Like, you know, we both thought there was no chemistry at first, you know? And we kind of revisit that and we're like, where are we? We check in, and we're also talking about how we'd like to see our future life potentially together so we can see if we're in alignment with one another. How did we get here? Where are we? And where are we going? I think everybody who's dating should adopt this as a narrative. But Jonathan, I'm with a guy who doesn't talk about his emotions. He doesn't talk about his feelings. We've been together for 5 years and he doesn't talk about the relationship. Then why the fuck do you want to be with that guy? Why do you want to be with a guy who isn't going to talk about the relationship? Folks, I'm here to say the whole point of relationship is to be of service to one another. And you can't be of service to one another if you're not constantly checking in about how did we get here? Where are we? And where are we going? That's the whole. Okay, I get jacked up here. I'm sorry, but I witnessed so many of you arguing for the wrong relationships. Why do you argue for the wrong relationship? Most likely because you're attached at an unhealthy level. And I'm here to be the wake-up call to shake you, to encourage you to step out of the old narratives and start stepping into something that's more heart-centered. I genuinely care for this person. I see a potential future, not that we're rushing into anything like getting married or anything like that or living together, but I see a future and we talk about what that would look like so we can get a sense of, are we on the same page? Someone write that in the chat box as well, because when you're asking, how did we get here? Where are we and where are we going? It's about being on the same page. We constantly check in. We constantly check in. Debbie just points this out. I also agree that weekly check-ins on the relationship. We do it regularly. We don't do it weekly. We do it every time we talk, partially because I think I want to teach. I want to coach people. I really only want to work with people who genuinely want a heart-centered connection, not a transactional relationship. And so it's really about constantly checking in with each other on a regular basis. Are we on the same page? Are we on the same page? And of course, to have fun and do things. We went to a party it turns out she and I have many mutual friends, and we went to a party where she knew a lot of my friends, but there were some people that showed up at the party that I didn't know that she knew. So we have this great built-in kind of friendship with many couples. And we actually went to go stay the weekend at my ex-girlfriend's place. She has a vineyard in north of Los Angeles, and we stayed at her beautiful, not ranch, but beautiful place. Because she's good. She is actually friends with my ex-girlfriend and their partner. She knows them. So we had a lovely weekend connecting. And this is where I'm here to say, when we can shed all of the bullshit expectations around relationships, folks, I highly recommend reading If the Buddha Dated. If the Buddha Dated, it throws out all the bullshit gender rhetoric and says, how can we connect at a heart-centered level? And what I'm grateful for this new experience is that we're connecting at a heart-centered level, and we constantly check in. How did we get here? Where are we going? Or where are we? Where are we going? To make sure we're on the same page. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me. Check out my group called Midlife Love Mastery. Get my dating vows. Get the books I recommend. Get my book. It's all listed below. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. Oh, wait. Tamara says, I didn't know he started a new relationship. I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much. I'm making it public now. Folks, thanks so much. I'm going to end my video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And we all could use more love in our lives. And Tamara also wants to say, I'm actually excited for her. Great guy. Thanks so much. And Totally Chill Girl says, John Gary recommends that you don't start dating someone because you're sexually attracted to them. Yes, I do believe what matters most is intellectual and emotional connection, and let the physical connection take it from there. All right, everyone. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful evening. Be well. Thanks. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.